Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Scott.
I'm Shatay, and we're the Hazes.
Welcome to the Love Haze podcast, where we talk about those unspoken hard parts of life.
That's right. We process out loud what most folks experience in silence.
Mm-hmm.
And today, on this here episode, we're coming for all the inherent problem solvers out there, like me, like you. And when our loved ones come to us with their problems, it is like our second nature to jump right into solutioning. But what does it look like for us to just hold space, to just let them figure it out on their own? Well, we're about to F around and find out.
Yes, Lord.
Welcome back to our Black Love Journeys. Let's go.
Let's go.
All right, Scotty. What's the setup? Why are we even talking about this? Where'd it come from?
I think this is one of the things that's important to me, I think, is figuring out how to balance what I do in my career with my personal life. So I follow a lot of therapists, a lot of other social work colleagues, particularly people who are in private practice. So I was scrolling the other day, and a young lady was having a conversation with a friend of hers, and she was telling her about a problem she was going through. And she turned around to her and she said, "That's not your problem to solve. That's not your puzzle to solve for them." And it made me think about what I do every day.
Yeah.
Basically, when people come into my office, I am there to help them solve problems. And I think more so with my family, I feel like I have to solve the problem for them.
Yeah.
And giving people the right and understanding they have self-determination and all those things, it is not my job to solve anybody's problem, not my clients, not my family, none of those, but we are both very solution-based people. And so when people bring us problems, we automatically go into solution mode. And I'm not sure I know how not to be solution-focused.
Yeah.
But I want to be better with that. But I am realizing that things that people have their own puzzles, and because I can see it, and sometimes even we can see things from a different perspective, we automatically want to tell people what to put together, and what should be next and what they should do, because it feels like you can see clearly from the outside, but you don't really help people a lot when you do it for them. And sometimes that's not even what they want from you. So I thought this would be great for us to unpack and just kind of like figuring out how we allow people to solve their own problems, to deal with their own puzzles, and support them in the best way that we can.
Yeah, this is just all up in my business, because even in our own relationship, you're like, I'm not telling you this for you to solve it. My mom, even if she's telling me something and I'll be like, oh, is there anything I can do to support you? She'll be like, I didn't tell you this for that. People just need someone to listen. And that's so hard for me for a lot of reasons that we will absolutely unpack in this session. But I will start here. I recently took the Clifton strength test, right? Strength Finder is what it used to be called. And my number one strength is strategy, which is not surprising, but also a little surprising that it wasn't something different. But like number one, strategy. And in the description is like, it's really easy for you to spot patterns and like, and think of different routes to an end point quickly, right? And it said even one of the blind spots is you get there so quickly that other people might see you as, it might come off as negative in some kind of way. And I forget the language that they use. I don't know if it was because it might have seemed half-baked, or because I'm moving so quickly, I haven't brought other people along and they're just not there yet. And so it's like my synapses are firing. I can just connect dots really, really quickly. And to your point, if someone's relaying a challenge, and I'm like, I'm trying to be all over it. I love problem solving games, even like Sudoku, word search, Tetris, right? Solving problems are fun. So to not have I don't know, it's just so instinctive that turning it off requires intention and like slowing down. And I try now, based on, your feedback and obviously my mom's, I try now to say, Like, I don't even know if I've done it. But I would like to say
I was about to say, tell me what this is that you say.
I would like to say, what is it that you need from me in this moment?
Yeah.
Do you need help talking through a solution,
Hmm.
or you just need someone to listen? And I don't even know if I'm there yet.
I'm getting much better with that part of it. More so for my clients and I've learned to like inherently do that with my clients.
Mhm.
Um, with my family, not as much, because I feel like they almost present it to me as a problem for me to solve. Like, what should I do?
Yeah, yeah.
But also, you know, it it's a different level of investment when it's someone that you care about, someone that you love.
Mhm.
And not to say that I don't care about my clients, but I'm not as tied to the outcome for them. And it's very important for me, for my clients, to be able to own whatever the outcome is, to have that self determination, to be able to make the mistake or have the success on their own,
Yeah.
and for me only to have help in supporting them, like see whatever is the best route for them to go. For people who I'm in relationship with, I'm more tied to the outcome because more than likely it's going to impact me
Mm.
as well.
Mhm.
And so it's a little bit more difficult to not like insert like, can't you clearly see this,
Yeah.
or don't you understand, and to not have some type of judgment that's tied to it. And even though I don't want that, it is much more difficult. I can acknowledge that at base,
Mhm.
and I don't always know what to do with that.
Yeah, especially when it's like a challenge and like you want better for the person than maybe you feel like they're experiencing
Hmm.
now. That part is always really challenging. This also comes to mind just in terms of like why people solution. So, I'm saying it's just literally a part of who I am, like
Hmm.
just how I show up in the world. The other thing I read once before that also really resonates with me, 'cause I'm complicated and I'm layered and stuff. But I read it somewhere where it said something like people with anxiety like to solve other people's problems 'cause they want it
Hmm.
to be better because it makes them feel better. It like
Hmm.
eases their anxiety for the thing to be
Hmm.
fixed. And I had never thought about that before, but it's like, oh yeah, like if my mom or my best friend or my brother aren't in pain anymore, I actually do feel better.
Yeah, of
Like
course.
I literally physically feel better. And so, I never even thought that there would be sort of a selfish-ish or self-centered kind of a
Hmm.
perspective on problem solving. So that actually is even interesting to think about. Like I need all of the things to be fixed so that I'm not anxious.
I have to do active work with you though to make sure that I am not telling you things
Mm,
because you like to solve problems, and I
mm.
don't need that from you. And so I'll tell you some stuff, and then you'll start with like, "Well, what do we need to do next?" And this is what I think, and this is what you should do. And it comes from a good place. You have a really good heart, and you want things to be well. But in my back of my mind, I'd be like, "You ain't got the answer, Sway.
What if
How?"
but what if I have a different perspective that
And
helps get to the answer?
I can receive a different perspective. Um, and even some suggestions at times, but sometimes, and I have to preface things with you now,
Mhm.
like because you haven't quite gotten to the point to where you say, why do you want me to listen to this? Or
Yeah.
I'm able to say to you now, like, I just need you to hear me.
Yeah.
you know I think that that part is very important, but I need to be able to get to the solution on my own in the same way that my clients do so that I can fully own whatever the outcome is as
Mm.
well. So I need to know, I made this decision like solely based on what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
It has to have been completely my choice so I can own the outcome of it. Any other way, especially for the way that my mind works sometimes, I can shift the blame if it wasn't, totally my doing, totally my decision, that type of thing. And I, of course, have to find balance with that as a human being, of being able to receive information, to get advice
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to put that through the sifter of my own, decision making and being able to make my own choices. So I do something that's good for me.
Yeah. So in general, though, I know how it is with me because I know how I am. What's your preference? Like when you share things with your boys, for example, or your mom, like are you mostly seeking out someone to just hear you, or are you ever interested, like wanting thought partnership?
I think there are times I preface it with them as well. Like I may just need a space to vent. Sometimes when me and the fellows go out, we're just generally throwing around ideas and that kind of stuff. Or I may say, "Hey, man, y'all, I need some help,
Mm-hmm.
fellas. Like I don't know which way to go with this particular thing. Like, what are your thoughts?
Mm,
Like, I really need some feedback on this thing." So we always talk about the idea of setting the table, and I think there's no way around that,
mm,
being able to set the table. But I know for me, even though I set the table, I have a tendency to want to just problem solve for other people because when I come into my sessions, I've got about 45 minutes to
mhm,
like hear what you got going on,
mhm,
kind of help you work through some
mhm.
things to figure out the why and to come out on the other end with, several suggestions for what we have to do. And in our personal lives, it just can't be that way. It can't be
Yeah.
just like I got 45 minutes and I got to have some solutions. So being able to navigate that from the standpoint of being in personal relationship with someone it's very difficult for me because I want to help people solve problems,
Mhm.
and I don't know how not to do that.
Yeah. I at least notice now that I am not as quick. I know at one point in my life I would have immediately been like, "Oh, but what about this? What do you think about this?" And now I at least wait a couple
Hmm.
beats, listen to what they're saying. I might even say, "Well, what do you think about it first?" You
Hmm.
know? And one thing I have learned, and I do this more at work honestly than I do in my personal life to your point too. Like with people on my team, I might say, first, what are your thoughts about it? Right.
Hmm.
But that's more of like a coaching
Yeah.
tactic strategy. Like, how do I empower them to have more autonomy, make more decisions so that I am not like into the weeds with their work. But then the other thing is, I might say, well, are you open to some feedback? Would you like to hear my thoughts? You know what I
Mm.
mean? I'm able
That's
to do,
good.
would
That's really
you,
good. Hmm.
would you, can I insert my thoughts here? And I don't know why it's easier, it seems like, to do those things in work relationships than that. Maybe I guess because we're too close to our people otherwise, you know?
Hmm. You have personal investment. There's no way around like understanding and acknowledging that you have personal investment when it's your family, your friends, that type of
Yeah.
thing. The outcome is the outcome when it's somebody else's stuff. And even as much I have the hugest heart for being a helper, right?
Hmm.
For helping people navigate their different journeys, but I have the most difficulty when it's someone I have personal involvement with. And
Yeah.
that is why, even for me as a clinical social worker, as a therapist, um I have to refer people out. People call me with their problems and stuff, and I have to be like, hey, I gotta refer you to somebody. Like, I can't help you
Mm.
know, with this couple situation, whatever. People call and be like, "Hey, me and my wife having this issue. We want to talk to you about it." Mm,
Hmm.
I got a good therapist number for you because I know both of y'all. I'm closer to you. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be on your side.
Yeah.
So hey, you just looking for me to tell your wife that she wrong? Because it's gonna cause more of a fallout if I get involved. So I need to refer y'all out, and we can't refer our family out. We gonna try
Yeah.
to help them.
Yeah. So what's the haze rather? What's the haze of, I think we've kind of talked about it a little bit. The haze of taking our hands off of something and just holding space for someone else to solve the problem themselves. It makes me think about one of my friends has two little girls, and she was driving. I think she was retelling this story. It was so funny. Shout out to Jade, all Journey, and Nova. So she was telling, and Journey is tiny, right? Less than 2 years old.
Mhm.
They were driving in the car, and something like Journey had gotten like in the seat wrong, car seat wrong. She was maybe upset about it and couldn't get untwined. And Jay was telling Nova, "Hey, help Journey like get together," and Nova was like, "That's Journey's problem." And
Hmm.
this is like a
All
4-year-old
right.
or a 5-year-old saying that, and we both chuckled when she was telling the story. She was like, "Okay, yeah, I guess that is Journey's problem." But one thing she also says I really, really respect her for, she's like, they're so resilient because when I'm around them, or any kids in general, I'm like, oh snap, they're gonna fall. They're gonna, what if they hit their
Yeah.
head on this? I'm just
Hmm.
like so anxious about, ooh, they fell down. And she's like, they're so resilient. Like
Yeah.
they're fine. Spoken like a mother of 2 kids.
Hmm.
But I think I'm gonna save this comment because it is definitely about navigating. But what's the haze and just releasing and letting somebody solve it themselves?
The haze is, for me, is often that, giving you the answer is much easier,
Yeah.
less time consuming, and we can get back to kicking it,
Mm.
right? If I just give you the answer, the haze of it is it takes away from it. It selfishly takes away from time. We could be doing something else. I could be kicking it, that type of thing. I could just give you the answer. The haze of it is also, if I give you the answer, then you never find a solution on your own.
Mm.
You never give people you're not trusting them to solve on their own. You're not, to me, being a good friend, if you just give the answer,
Mhm.
and you're not giving them the autonomy to be able to do it for themselves.
Mm.
And so then that begs the question, like, are you really in true relationship with somebody?
Mm.
I had to go back in my friendships just over the years and like assert for my friends that it's okay for them to tell me when I'm wrong,
Yeah.
to call me on my stuff and to challenge me.
Mhm.
Especially as I've gotten into doing like man to man kind of stuff, all of that. The idea that iron sharpens iron,
Mhm.
that we need to be challenged, like the idea that there are safe spaces and then there are brave spaces when you have to call people out, allow them to problem solve on their own, not back up their BS, those types of things. That's a hey, because it puts some level of strain on the relationship when you say, I'm not just going to do it for you, but I'm here to support you.
Mhm.
And it can be received in a wrong way. Like, yeah, I do want to help you, but if I do it for you, then what happens if I'm not available to do it for you the next time? And then we have this fallout because you did it last time. Like, can that be your thing that you do?
Mhm.
That creates future strain on the relationship as well. And just trying to balance all of that and trying to be a good friend and what that looks like for both of y'all in a relationship. It's a bit of a haze.
I like what you said about the trust part, like trusting the other person to figure it out. There's a lot that you said there that was like, okay, setting boundaries, like,
Hmm.
but that feels like the person is looking for you to solve it, and you're like, hey, I've helped
Hmm.
you once before. I'm not going to, help you again, or not making sure that there's not an expectation, like this is how
Yeah.
I'm going to show up. Then it makes me think about like codependency. Like, does that then create codependency if we're always solving someone else's problem? Because then it becomes like, well, I fixed it. It becomes about
Hmm.
me. And then like the person needing me. And to your earlier point about trust, like then it's almost like maybe they're not even trusting themselves to solve it on their own, or they really are, like, whether they know it or not, using you to solve it because it's
Hmm.
just easier and they don't have to deal with it and face it. So it's kind of all sorts of like messiness, I think, in there in terms of the
Hmm.
haze.
That's really what I don't want anymore in my life, though, like messiness.
Mm.
And some things that we get in, like there's no avoiding like certain conflict in relationships,
Mhm.
but there are certain things that we do that just kind of create the perfect storm for things to go awry.
Yeah.
And when you solve things for people and you become the solver of this thing in their life for all things, and that's your role
Yeah.
then, and they start to believe, or they can start to believe that that's what you want to be in their life.
Mm.
Even think about conversations we've had in the past where I was talking about how I showed up for people and just was everything that they needed. And then I became, this person that people just kind of dump stuff on. But I played a role in that, and
Mhm.
just being like, "Hey, bring all them problems to me. I can eat them. I
Mhm.
know the solve.
I
I
know
know
the
I do this
answer.
for a living.
Mhm.
Just bring it all to me." And then people out in the street kicking it with their friends that didn't know how to solve problems, they went and created chaos with them,
Mhm.
and then brought the bullshit, to me. But there's a role that I played in that, and showing up and being like, "Back it on up, bring
Mhm.
it over here," and it didn't help the person ultimately because they weren't learning how to solve problems for themselves. And it ultimately was kind of a relationship killer too, because I ended up feeling like, damn, that's all I am to you.
Mhm.
But then that's how I showed up. That's how I represented myself. Like, this is what I can do for you. This is how I can bring value. And I just got to be better to myself than that. And so I got to have my boundaries. That person has to have their boundaries, and they need to be able to solve their own problems. Because what about when I ain't there?
Yeah.
The person be like, "Well, damn, you wasn't there for me. I ain't
Mhm.
supposed to be."
Not all the time. Yeah, it does sort of like stunt growth in some way when it
Hmm.
becomes like a pattern and a codependency. Like then the person doesn't, we become crutches,
Hmm.
you know? How do we navigate it?
You have to actively give yourself permission and give other people permission to just be
Yeah.
and to figure out things on their own. To I think be able to ask people what they need, and to be able to be clear about whether or not you can provide it.
Mhm.
Like, do you want thought partnership? Do you just need support? Do you need someone to hear you?
Mhm.
Those are really the three things that I can offer you. Now, for you, it may be more. I can give you suggestions. I can't answer this for you.
Mhm.
And even if I give you some answers, I would really challenge you on the back end of those answers. Like, why are you making that choice?
Yeah.
Right? Is it because it's what I said? Because I want to be clear before you move forward with this. Like, whatever the outcome of your choice is your outcome. Because
Mhm.
I don't want you. I had people call me and be like, "Man, I did that bullshit you said and it didn't work out." And sometimes it's been in jest. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But for real, it is. If I see you in a pattern of like not making your own choices, so
Mhm.
you can be able to come back and be like, "I did what you said and it ain't work." And
Mhm.
I'm like, "Okay, I understand, but you still need to make your own choice." So it is being able to like have the level of friendship or relationship or family intimacy
Mhm.
where you're able to say like, what is it that you need from me, and this is what I can offer on the back end of what you need. And to me, that's the safest way and the best way to maintain relationship is to be clear about what a person needs, to be clear about what you can offer, and to let them know like, hey, did this your puzzle to put together,
Mhm.
this ain't my shit. I'm very good now at telling people that ain't my shit.
Yeah.
Like, this yours.
Yeah.
I told my sister the other day, I was just like, that ain't mine.
Mhm.
Like, you calling me real aggressive because you ain't do something that you was supposed to do. And you like, this is the least that you can do since I've done it. I'm like, look, whatever that is, that ain't mine. Like, I'm willing to help and willing to support. I appreciate all that you've done. That shit right there, it ain't
Mhm.
mine. All that bass you got in your voice right, that ain't mine.
Mm.
But tell me how I can support you.
Yeah. I think the best way to navigate, I agree with that, is just asking the question like, how, what do you need from me? Like, how can I
Hmm.
best support you in this very moment? I know for me, if being on the other side of it, I often come to you and be like, hey, can you talk me off the ledge? Or I need your thought partnership. I'm
Hmm.
often asking, like, I need you to weigh in. Can you be my sound?
Often. Well,
Yes. Can you be my sounding board? Tell me what you think about, like, I'm actively asking for your inputs. And so
hmm.
there's not, I don't know, I'm trying to think, is there ever a situation where I'm just like, I need somebody to just listen to me? Because even in my therapy sessions, like, yeah, I want to be heard. And also, I just like, okay, what about it? You know what I mean? Like, what are we going to do with this information? So I don't know if that's, yeah, I don't know what that's about. But I
I don't
think
know. Our therapist just told you the other day, like, why you rushing to answer?
she always, if
So I
she
think you
says
still in
other,
process there.
there's other things she says, this is golden and it's very relevant to this conversation. She'll be like, why are you trying to pre-solve problems? Now
Hmm.
that's the word for this session here, this conversation. Because I'll be like trying to what's the word? So I'll take our marriage, our wedding, for example. This is just one way it shows up. But in my life, I will call myself researching. I'm just going to ask a ton of questions, and I'm going to ask a lot of people. I researched before I got my locks. Everybody who had locks, I'm like, "Oh, tell me about your lock experience. How did you like it? What kind are these?" When we were engaged, I did the same thing with people who have been married for a while. Like, tell me, random strangers even. Somebody came up to me in a restaurant for my bachelorette dinner, and they were like, "Oh, we've been married for 30-something years." And we even recorded them. Like, okay, what's the secret? What have you learned? What can you tell us? And I asked almost every single married person that I knew while we were engaged. Turns out that's not necessarily research. So much
surprise.
Trying to pre-solve problems, because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take all these insights and impressions and like
put them all together
and do this so we can have preventative, right, measures, preventative interventions for the problems we can have down the line. And that is legit how I live my life. When we go anywhere, we got a picnic, I'm going to take like, oh, we need the first aid kit. We need like drinks. We need the water flavor for the water. Like, and then we end up packing the whole house because it's like anything better to be safe than sorry. Let me pre-solve all of these problems that we might have.
And then we get to wherever the place is, you want something from a food truck.
But she called it out, and she has such a really good way of seeing something and putting it in very good plain language. She's like, why are you trying to pre-solve problems? And it really comes back to trust. She was like, you just got to trust yourself that when a problem arises, like, you'll know what to do.
Right.
And I was like, ooh, that's a word. You have the ability
to be able to do it.
So then the pre-solving is almost like an act of not trusting.
And what are you working on this
year? Trust. Let me tell y'all how this trust growth journey has kicked my ass this year. Okay? Just want to say that.
On into July.
Listen. Hopefully it gets better.
Come on.
It's been a very long lesson, okay?
So what would you say the biggest lesson is that you learned in supporting your loved ones through challenges?
I don't know if it's like hindsight kind of lesson. I think talking through this today has just sort of encouraged me, empowered me, re-energized. I don't know, kind of just put it back on my radar that I should be doing this more, because I don't really think that I am. Especially, like my younger brother, who I still call my little brother, who's a grown-ass man. If he has a problem, I'll be like, I'm itching on the inside to be like, ooh, what about, and yeah, I think it's just a matter of me. There is no lesson, as I'm still working on this one, I guess, to point. I need to stop, pause, and ask how the person needs to be supported and try to show up in that way instead of just defaulting to what's most natural to me. And not that I don't trust the other person. It's just literally I'm operating the way that I'm wired to,
The biggest or one of the worst things that you can do to someone that you love is to solve problems for them and then expect them to do it for themselves the next time. I've learned too that it can breed resentment from both ends. Me for feeling like I gotta always solve your problems, and from the loved one feeling like you don't trust them to solve their own problems. And it's really hard when you really just want to be helpful. But at the end of the day, you don't get to tell people what to do. They have to figure it out for themselves. And you can support them through it, but people need to be able to tell you what support looks like for them. And we don't get to tell people what that support should look like. It doesn't always look like just handing it to them. And it doesn't always look like just carrying their burdens and, being able to support doesn't even always look the same for people. You really have to be so in relationship with person, so attentive to what's going on that you are asking, what does that look like for you?
Yeah.
And what it used to look like, it doesn't look like it anymore. You have to be able to call stuff, out when, maybe a person is leaning, depending on you a little bit too much.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, I'm concerned that, this is me telling you what to do. rather than what you want to do. What is it that you actually want to do?
Yeah. And it's easy to get caught up in those type of cycles. I'll speak for myself. Once upon a time with like parents. You know what I mean? Like I was so used to having like inputs on things. My mom did a pretty good job of saying, well, what do you think? You choose this. And those used to be really hard for me when I was growing up. Or I even remember praying to God, like, just tell me what to do in this situation. Like, I don't know, which I'm sure has a lot more to do with like perfectionism and other kinds of stuff. It's layered. But yeah, I think, depends on probably like your personality style, what you've gone through in life before, like what your stuck places and stuff are. I'm sure it's nuanced for everybody, but yeah, all of that's really interesting.
Yeah.
What's the music for this moment?
So my music for the moment today is unpopular, but it has a meaning. So, people really ain't rocking with Kanye West right now.
But this is like old Kanye.
Yeah. And we miss the old Kanye.
Yeah.
I personally feel like old Kanye was a little bit more humble, had more of a heart for the people and all that kind of stuff. But the music for the moment is Can't Tell Me Nothing by Kanye West. One of his old jams, but it is relevant today because frequently when I hear people talk about Kanye West, people are saying like, why ain't somebody in his circle doing something about what he's got going on? Why aren't people making sure he's taking his meds? Why aren't people, making sure he's in therapy? Why isn't somebody intervening? And that's so relevant to this discussion because that's Kanye's problem to solve. And of course he has a crew around him who may be, being like, hey, take your meds. Hey, dude, what are they supposed to be doing? Forcing it down his throat? Ultimately, that is that man's issue to deal with. His mental health, his decision, what he does with his money, what he does around navigating his family relationships. We would hope that people in his circle are supporting him in that way, but ultimately that's not their responsibility. I heard Charlamagne the God talking about him one day and being like, ain't nobody in his circle doing nothing about that. Like, and he's even talked about them all being on a call with Kanye before and, trying to encourage him. But ultimately you can't tell nobody nothing.
I don't want to be told.
People have to make the choice for themselves in their own time when they're ready to do something different. Right? Family members, friends, whoever, you can't tell anybody something about somebody that they love, no matter what you think about them. You can't tell anybody anything about a decision that they've already made up their mind that they're going to do. We can talk through like what it may look like after you make that choice, how it may impact you and I's relationship if you make that decision. But ultimately, you can't tell me nothing. Right? I got to do it for myself.
That's the one I was like, make sure I get my money.
Wait till I get my money right.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, make sure y'all go and follow our Music for the Moment playlist on Spotify. That song will be added to the playlist. And while you are following things, please follow, subscribe to this video on our YouTube channel or wherever we are on the internet. We're all over the place. We love for your ratings and your follows and your even shares with your friends and family for whoever you think needs these types of conversations, all the hard parts. To help them navigate the hard parts of life.
Absolutely.
And like we always say, life will always present you with a haze, but we have everything that we need within us to navigate through it.
And you're not alone. Tune in this time, next time, every time.
Every time.
We're going to take this journey together. All right, y'all. Peace.
Holla.
Why'd you take so long to come?